What is the state of the most diverse metagame that we have seen in years? Well, I'm here to answer that question today. Hey, 34% of you that have not smashed the living crap out of that subscribe button, smash it so we can climb up the 100k ladder here. So we have an OCG tier list here, and I'm actually particularly intrigued by this because seeing how their recent power scalings and things have kind of come to light out of the OCG, it has been very interesting just to kind of see the elevation and things that they're going through here. So up at S tier, so this will be the highest tier up here that you see, is actually going to be good old Tri-Brigade. Now, this can be any sort of combination of Tri-Brigade good stuff because honestly the sprite package is not too horrible in this deck. Remember, the OCG has much harsher restrictions on some of their metagame than we actually do. I mean, they have Sprite Jet paywalled back behind some relatively crazy cards. So that's one real big thing to really discuss there. So I'm not surprised to see that Sprite has such a dominant hold on the top, at least the top scaling here for their format, because once again, the deck has so much diversity, so much power scaling, so much adjustability going for it that it's actually kind of crazy. Now, I also see here that in the A category here is where things get very interesting. So we have Shadal listed here. Now, this is kind of interesting because this would probably refer to as the Grasslook Screener deck. Now, actual fun fact here, the OCG still has grass at 2, which kind of has led them to have some really interesting interactions out here. And it's not to say that it's fun, but it's not fun. Winda Turbo, as we're going to call it. Honestly, just kind of how many good package engines can we put together to have work out at the end of the day? I think the answer is enough will make things go the way that you want to do here. Now, we also have Runic in A tier as well. I am not surprised about this. Runic has been such a dominating force in both Master Duel and in the OCG meta. Now remember, they have multiple copies of Card Demise, which has just led this deck on such a massacring path here that it is a whole nother level of crazy with what that deck is doing right now. So if you're out here and you're looking at how their meta is shifting up, yeah, Runic has definitely budged up because its game plan is totally different than the rest of the meta. When you find yourself sitting at, you know, a position to count your opponent's deck size and literally use that as a reference point for their life points, it creates such a different paradigm for the game state that I think it's almost very, very scary here what that can do for you. And then, of course, we also have Gishki over here in the last A tier slot as well. Honestly, you'd love to see it. That deck is also going to be one of the scariest decks in the room, mainly because, you know, when you've slowed down everything to this point and you have Gishki running around, you know, being like, haha, I'm a free negate bounce, there's nothing that your opponent can really do about it. All right, and plus, you know, you pack your sprite package in here, you're now playing a very, very, very dangerous game against this deck where, you know, the level 2 stuff is going to control and you're just going to get torn apart. That's unfortunately how it is. I do agree with Runic and Gishki feeling a little bit ahead of the curve here for sure. Now, as we push on down to B tier here, we have Naturia Ishizu good stuff, and I do kind of agree with this. Even though Keldo and Mudora are limited, both of these are, well, I mean, the deck is still pretty solid at the end of the day. It hasn't really lost much, and to be honest with you, the Naturia package is very, very strong still, and I think it's going to continue to be. Now, we also have Tier. Now, if you're looking at this, you're like, Robbie, stop, they banned Kit Gallos. Yeah, I know they banned Kit. I know they did. But you know what? The deck it's still doing things. I think that's the most interesting thing about this whole list, is even with Kit Gallos gone, the OCG is finding ways to make Tier still be playable. And that is scary as crap at the end of the day. That such a deck, such hits, such still playable. Yeah. Flaunderies are a little bit higher on this list than I would like to see them. I mean, they're down a barrier statue at this point. I mean, their game plan is still pretty much the same. They're still going to aim to do a lot of the generic stuff that they've been doing for quite some time, but that lack of barrier statue means that they're down a floodgate. and not having that residual floodgate to set up and punish the opponent really does hurt. And then of course we have Labyrinth down here at B tier. Now I would argue that you could put this one in A tier because Labyrinth is a very, very solid pick still. The only problem with Labyrinth is I would say it suffers from rogue syndrome, where the more rogue decks that you have in the room, the more that it kind of struggles against those, because you kind of have to main deck certain trap cards to kind of, curve out certain matchups. That's what really makes Labyrinth be a strong selling point and a big thing that players kind of want to interact with. So to see that, Rogue can do rogue things to kind of curve you out, I'm not surprised. It happens at the end of the day. So that's the supposed listed B tier here. Like I said, I would move Labyrinth up. Now C tier here, we have Fairy Tale Luna Control. Honestly, not surprised about that either. Luna Control is one of those decks that maintains an interesting little hold on the metagame, where it will pressure through and do some really interesting things. I also think that they have like the rank 8 toolbox stuff in this category as well. I like the Gizmek stuff, because Gizmek with the Desires, Grand Manju, all of that is very, very canon to the Fairy Tale Luna deck. We also have what is left of Kashtira / Shangri-La. Unicorn and Fenrir to 1 sent this deck packing back to the Stone Age. What was once one of the strongest macrocosmo decks in the game has now since been cleaned up and is actually down here at C tier. That's rough. We have Spriggans in C tier as well. Spriggans, they get their own soul charge. Like, a deck that has its own soul charge has to be semi-competitively viable. I feel like it could be like B.5 almost, because that deck does some really weird things. And yeah, the boards it sets up with Spriggan cards aren't necessarily the craziest, but it's still something. We also have Draco Slayer in C tier. It's kind of funny to see like the differences between our Draco Slayer list and the OCG. They have it so far down, the rabbit hole here, that unfortunately it doesn't really get the chance to see a lot of play. Same thing here with Astrograph Sorcerer. They have Electromite, they have Beyond the Pendulum, but those pendulum decks they don't do anything right now. And unfortunately, in the current iteration of this, there's not really much of a pick-me-up or a reward to want to play those decks over the higher end of the tier. It's just how it is. And then we have Adignister here. Yeah, I could see this deck still maintaining some sort of presence down here in the C tier. Perfectly makes sense to me. The fact that, if kaijus are not in season and you end up playing against a kaiju, well, you lose. That's honestly, all the Cyberse decks that want to go second that could actually play this card do have an opportunity to do so. They feel really off the grid. Down here in D tier we have Lyrilisk. I mean, yeah, unless you're playing like Lyrilisk Brigade, which I feel like is the better variant, then that would be my go-to. Outside of that, if you're trying to play pure, no. We also have Phantom Knights down here in D tier. I mean, they just got what? Their Phantom Knight that's been locked up for so long at this point, they finally got it back. So I guess I'll clap for that. Kudos. We also have Eldritch the Golden Lord down here. Eldritch isn't doing anything. Eldritch is going to continue to not do anything either, which is really sad at the end of the day. I mean, Eldritch is a particularly strong engine, but it's just kind of what we're dealing with now. Like, unfortunately, there's better trap decks. We also have Trap Tricks down here in D tier. They just got that structure deck, and you thought that it would keep up with the game. No, it didn't. It missed the mark, unfortunately. We also have Thurion. I mean, Thurion with Rika is a good combination deck, but at the end of the day, it kind of fell off. As much as I want to be like, yeah, Thurion, it's not the most exciting thing. And then we have Abyss Actors down here. Now, this is actually kind of saucy. I've seen Abyss Actors do some crazy things. The deck is a really cool engine when it gets off the ground, but it doesn't have like any good defensive options. You kind of set up your field kind of like Madolche, and then you kind of hope that you don't get washed away by, what's setting up across a table. If your opponent ends up tearing through your board, well, that's kind of all she wrote, in the most comical sense of, Bugs Bunny that there could be. So this is the current OCG tier list from One Duelist. I found it particularly interesting just to kind of mention all of this, because it kind of takes a little bit of a sneak peek into the OCG format to kind of take a look at, how things are bearing over there. And I think that's important. So please leave a comment down below to what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace.
Patrons, thank you.
Ugh.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.